All right, you degenerates, buckle up for some seriously fucked up shit. We're going deep into a clusterfuck of epic proportions today. This shit is so messed up it'll make your head spin.
Oh, yeah. This one's a doozy.
Imagine getting accused of stealing thousands, even though you're fucking innocent.
Brutal.
Can picture going to jail for it.
Double brutal.
That's exactly what happened to hundreds of innocent people in the UK. And the reason...
Shitty software. A classic tale.
We're talking about the Horizon IT system, right? That accounting software the post office rolled out back in '99.
Yep. And then used it to crucify sub-postmasters, accusing them of stealing left and right.
Over 900 sub-postmasters prosecuted. Some even went to jail, based on what turned out to be faulty data from this Horizon system.
It's a total shit show. And the fucked up thing is, the post office was warned about problems with Horizon, even way back in '99 when they first rolled this shit out.
So they knew from the get-go.
Sub-postmasters were reporting errors constantly, but the post office just shoved their complaints in the trash.
So they knew the damn system was fucked.
They knew, but they just didn't give a shit. They were more interested in saving face than actually fixing the damn thing.
Typical bureaucratic bullshit.
They even had internal reports, like one from Second Sight in 2013 that spelled out the flaws, but they swept that shit under the rug.
Hold on, let's talk about this Second Sight report. What the hell did it find? And how did the post office manage to ignore it?
So the post office is getting hammered by MPs and the media, right? They finally cave and commission Second Sight to do an independent investigation.
Okay.
And what do they find? Horizon was a fucking mess. Prone to errors, bugs, communication issues, outdated equipment, you name it. They even found out that technicians at Fujitsu, the company that made Horizon, could change branch accounts remotely without leaving a trace. It was shady as hell.
Wait, so these Fujitsu guys could fuck with people's accounts, and no one would be the wiser. They were playing God with these people's lives.
It's fucked up, right? And guess what? The post office dismissed Second Sight's findings and kept insisting that Horizon was perfect. They blamed the sub-postmasters for any discrepancies. This shit went on for years.
How can any organization be this goddamn negligent and get away with it for so long? It's deliberate bullshit.
You gotta understand the context. The post office had a unique position as a prosecutor. They'd been prosecuting cases for centuries. Now, that might not be the main reason for this shitstorm, but it sure raises questions about whether they were being fair in these cases.
So they were judge, jury, and executioner, crushing anyone who dared question their precious Horizon system. Fucked up doesn't even begin to describe it.
And they didn't stop at criminal charges. They went after these poor bastards with civil claims, too. There was this one case, Lee Castleton. The post office sued him for almost £26,000, claiming it was his fault.
So they're accusing these people of stealing and trying to bleed them dry. That's some next-level assholery.
Get this. The post office's own lawyer admitted later, during the inquiry, that they knew Castleton wouldn't be able to pay if he lost. They still went after him to send a message, as they put it.
What message? They were a bunch of heartless pricks who enjoyed destroying people's lives.
Pretty much. It's pretty damn clear they were more worried about saving face than about justice or fairness.
This whole thing is a goddamn train wreck. Faulty software, aggressive prosecutions, a cover-up, and an organization that seems to have lost its moral compass. This shit is infuriating.
It definitely highlights the dangers of unchecked power, the potential for technology to be used for evil, and the absolute necessity of holding people accountable.
I'm already pissed off, and we're just scratching the surface.
Well, buckle up, Buttercup. We're about to go deeper into this rabbit hole. Remember Alan Bates, the whistleblower we talked about earlier? He was just the tip of the iceberg. There were others who saw the problems with Horizon and tried to sound the alarm, but the post office had a knack for silencing anyone who dared to speak up.
So they tried to bury this whole thing under a mountain of legal bullshit and intimidation.
Pretty much. They went to great lengths to discredit and silence anyone who spoke out against them, and for a long time they got away with it.
Well, the cat's out of the bag now. It's time to expose the cockroaches.
All right, let's get into how this whole shit show started to unravel. Remember those legal battles we mentioned? Things really started heating up around 2018 with a landmark case, Bates and Others v. Post Office Ltd.
Oh, yeah. The one where the post office finally got their asses handed to them.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
It was a major turning point in this whole scandal. The judge in that case, Mr. Justice Frazier, didn't hold back. He called out the post office for their shady bullshit and finally admitted that Horizon was unreliable as fuck. He said it had bugs, errors, and defects, which could easily lead to those shortfalls they were blaming on the sub-postmasters.
So a judge finally had the balls to say what everyone already knew, that the post office was full of shit, and their precious Horizon system was a goddamn disaster.
Exactly. And that ruling blew the whole thing wide open. The Criminal Cases Review Commission started referring convictions for appeal, and in December 2020, the first convictions were overturned. It was a huge victory for those sub-postmasters who had been screwed over.
About damn time. Those poor bastards had their lives destroyed, and some spent years fighting for justice.
Here's the kicker. During these appeals, it came out that the post office had received legal advice back in 2013. They called it the Clark Advice, warning them about the flaws in Horizon and how they were using evidence in prosecutions.
Wait, so they had a lawyer telling them they were screwing these people over?
Yeah.
And they just ignored it? How the hell is that even possible?
It seems like they were so obsessed with defending their system and their own asses that they were willing to ignore their own legal advice. The Clark Advice raised serious concerns about the expert witness statements and the reliability of Horizon data, but they buried it.
They just kept piling on the injustice. It's mind-blowing. These poor sub-postmasters were getting railroaded by an organization that knew they were in the wrong.
This scandal wasn't just about some faulty software. It was about a system that was rotten to its core. Allowing this injustice to happen, systemic failures, a culture of denial, and a lack of accountability at the top is recipe for disaster.
So it wasn't just a few bad apples. The whole damn barrel was spoiled.
It's a complex issue. But the post office's structure and culture played a big part in allowing this to go on for so long. Issues with corporate governance, shitty oversight, and a failure to investigate the concerns that were being raised. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when power goes unchecked, and the need for transparency and accountability within these massive organizations.
Hopefully some heads rolled after this shitstorm hit the fan.
There have been some consequences. Several executives stepped down, including Paula Venables, the CEO, during a lot of this mess. She even gave back her CBE? That's a pretty big deal.
A CBE? What the hell is that? Some fancy British award.
Yeah. It stands for Commander of the Order of the British Empire. It's a prestigious honor given by the Queen, but the public was so pissed off that Venables felt she had to give it back. She's also faced a lot of criticism and scrutiny during the inquiry.
Good. She should be stripped of any honors after the way she treated those sub-postmasters. It's the least she deserves after overseeing this whole shit show.
And the legal fallout isn't over. There's a criminal investigation going on, looking into possible perjury and perverting the course of justice. So there could be more serious consequences for those involved.
So some of these bastards might actually see the inside of a jail cell. Finally, some goddamn justice.
It's possible. The investigation is still ongoing, and we'll have to see what happens, but it's a significant development, showing that the authorities are taking this seriously and going after those responsible.
You know, the deeper we dig into this, the more fucked up it gets. It's like one giant rabbit hole of bullshit.
It's a twisted and messed up story, but what's important now is making sure the victims get the justice and compensation they deserve.
Speaking of compensation, what's happening on that front? Are these people finally getting what they're owed?
The government has set aside over £1 billion for compensation, which is a hell of a lot of money. But the process has been slow and complicated, with a bunch of different schemes in place.
So even after being cleared, they still have to jump through hoops to get their money.
Sadly, yes. It's another slap in the face for these people. There are calls for a more straightforward and independent compensation process. Hopefully that will happen.
It's the least they could do. These people have been through hell and back, and they deserve to be made whole again.
Absolutely. And beyond the money, there's the emotional toll, the damage to their reputations, and the sheer injustice of it all. Many of them will never fully recover from this.
This is a stark reminder that sometimes the system fails us, and it can fail us in spectacularly fucked up ways.
It raises important questions about our relationship with technology, the power dynamics within these organizations, and the importance of holding those in power accountable.
It's 2024, and we're still uncovering the depths of this scandal. It's unbelievable that something like this could happen in this day and age.
It's a sobering thought, but hopefully the post office scandal will be a wake-up call, prompting us to demand more transparency, accountability, and fairness from the institutions that govern our lives.
Well, let's hope so, but I'm not holding my breath.
Fair enough. But let's not forget the resilience of the sub-postmasters who fought for justice. Their determination is a testament to the human spirit. Their story reminds us that we can't just blindly trust those in authority.
And it shows that even when the odds are stacked against you, and you're facing a massive bureaucratic machine, you can still fight back and win.
Exactly. Their victory is a testament to the power of persistence and speaking truth to power.
Well said. Now, before we wrap this deep dive up, there's one more piece of this puzzle. The Post Office Horizon IT inquiry. This thing's been going on forever, right?
Yeah, they launched it in 2020. At first, it was a non-statutory inquiry, but they upgraded it to a full-blown statutory inquiry in 2021. That means it has the power to force people to testify and hand over evidence. It's been a long and complex process, with multiple phases examining every single aspect of this shit show.
So they're leaving no stone unturned in their quest for the truth.
They're going for a comprehensive investigation, trying to figure out how this happened, who's to blame, and what lessons can be learned to prevent this from ever happening again.
Sounds like they've got their work cut out for them. This is a mess of epic proportions.
It is. But the inquiry is crucial. It's not just about pointing fingers. It's about uncovering the systemic failures that allowed this to happen, and ensuring that safeguards are put in place so history doesn't repeat itself.
You know, I bet there have been some pretty explosive revelations during this inquiry. What are some of the craziest things that have come out?
There have been a few bombshells. For example, in one hearing, it came out that as recently as 2023, after all the convictions were overturned and this whole scandal was public knowledge, post office executives were still messing with data on the Horizon systems without the sub-postmasters knowing.
You're shitting me. They were still fucking with the data even after everything that happened. That's some next-level audacity.
It's mind-boggling. It really shows how deep the problems run within the post office's culture.
It's like they learned absolutely nothing. Unbelievable.
The inquiry has also exposed a pattern of secrecy and obfuscation. Witnesses have been dodging questions and holding back information, and there have been attempts to block the release of key documents. It's a battle for transparency.
Sounds like a classic cover-up. These guys are masters of deception.
Well, the post office has a lot to answer for, and the inquiry is doing a crucial job in holding them accountable and exposing the truth.
So when is this inquiry supposed to wrap up? Everyone is waiting to hear their conclusion.
It's an ongoing process with more phases planned. The final report isn't expected until sometime in 2025.
2025. That's a long time to wait for answers.
It is a long wait, but it's a complicated and massive investigation, and it's important that they do it right.
Well, hopefully it will all be worth it in the end. The victims of this scandal deserve the full truth.
Absolutely. And the public deserves to know what happened, how it was allowed to happen, and what needs to be done to prevent something like this from happening again.
You know, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I had no idea how bad this whole scandal was before we started digging into it.
It's a shocking and tragic story, and it's crucial that we learn from it. We need to be vigilant, hold institutions accountable, and make sure justice prevails even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable.
Well said. Now, before we get too deep into the philosophy of it all, let's wrap things up with some final thoughts on the British Post Office scandal. All right, so let's wrap up this deep dive into the British Post Office scandal. We've covered a lot of ground, folks. Faulty software, wrongful convictions, cover-ups, compensation nightmares. It's a clusterfuck of epic proportions.
It's a textbook example of how not to run an organization. They put their reputation above justice, and it blew up in their faces.
So where the hell does this all leave us? What are the key takeaways from this whole shit show?
First off, it's a reminder that technology, even when it's supposed to do good, can be flawed and misused. The Horizon system became a weapon to punish innocent people.
It's a cautionary tale about how technology can be turned against us, especially when it's in the hands of some powerful organization that doesn't give a shit about accountability.
Exactly. And this scandal shows how crucial due process and the presumption of innocence are. The post office, with their aggressive tactics and their refusal to admit that Horizon was fucked up, completely threw those principles out the window.
They treated those sub-postmasters as guilty until proven innocent. They turned the whole justice system on its head.
And it underscores the need for more transparency and accountability in big organizations. The post office's culture of secrecy and denial allowed this scandal to drag on for years.
What really gets me is the human cost of all of this. We're talking about real people, families, communities that were torn apart by this injustice.
The emotional toll on the sub-postmasters and their families is impossible to measure. Financial ruin, imprisonment, their reputations destroyed, and the constant stress of fighting a system that seemed rigged against them.
It's heartbreaking. And some of them even committed suicide.
Yeah.
That shows just how devastating this whole thing was.
It's a tragic reminder that justice delayed is often justice denied. Even though many of the convictions have been overturned and compensation is being paid out, the scars will probably last a lifetime.
So what the hell can we learn from all of this? What can we do to stop something like this from happening again?
We need to be more critical of technology and understand its limitations. We can't just blindly trust these complex systems, especially when they have the power to fuck up people's lives.
We also need to stand up to authority and speak out when things aren't right. The sub-postmasters who raised concerns about Horizon were ignored and dismissed for years. Their voices should have been heard.
Absolutely. We need to protect whistleblowers and take their concerns seriously, and we have to demand more transparency and accountability from these organizations, both public and private.
This whole scandal has really made me think twice about trusting the system. If this could happen to those sub-postmasters, it could happen to any of us.
It's a scary thought, but we can't afford to be complacent. We need to call out injustice wherever we see it, and work towards a fairer society for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. This has been a heavy one, folks, but it's an important story that needs to be told.
It's a story about how power can be abused, how technology can fail, and how resilient people can be in the face of injustice. And it's a story that's still unfolding as the inquiry digs deeper to uncover the truth.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, you crazy bastards. And remember, stay informed, stay critical, and never stop fighting for what's right.